Well, cool, man. So, Mr. Ty Cobb,
Ty
welcome.
Cobb.
Yeah, the one and only baseball Hall of Famer, Army veteran, all the
Yeah.
above.
hmm
How you doing today?
I'm not too bad. Having
Good,
some
man.
coffee, seeing what the plan of
Me
the day is
too.
going to look
And you
like.
know that America runs on Dunkin', bud.
Yeah. My wife has a whole thing of coffee from espressos to grinding it to all the foo-foo coffee you would want. So,
That's awesome. Well, I'm kind of out of state doing this one, so
where are you right
otherwise
now?
I'd have like the great state of Louisiana.
Oh, very cool. Nice little
Yeah.
road trip.
Yep. Took the week. Cole went to hang out on a cruise and go see Cozumel, Mexico, and we came to visit Becky's parents.
That's cool, man. We're supposed to be going to Galveston sometime to go to the beach. Tatum and Sarah want to go to the beach, so we're going to head down there. I don't know, tomorrow or something for a day.
Sweet.
He's on spring break right now, so.
Yeah, you got to enjoy that spring break, man. So, are you ready to let everybody learn about you? Know more
Sure.
about you? Awesome.
Absolutely.
So, once again, we've got the amazing Ty Cobb in with us today for this episode of the podcast. We're going to get to know you, see what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what makes you do the things that you do, because I know you do a lot. So, let's start simple. Tell people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and kind of like what led you up to going into the military.
Well, I'm from Corbin, Kentucky, small little town in southeastern Kentucky. All the things you would hear about Kentucky: basketball, bourbon, racehorses. That's kind of how I was raised. So um, my father was a Marine, so I was raised by a military guy. My oldest brother was in the Navy. So you
Smart
know,
man.
yeah, I pretty much, yeah, exactly. So I rebelled and joined the army, and so, so yeah, that's pretty much how that went. I have 6 children. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. Life is good.
Nice. Well, so growing up in Corbin, Kentucky, how was that for you? Like, what did you? I'm not very familiar with Kentucky, but like, did you grow up in like a big city? Did you grow up out in a rural area? Where did you grow up?
Oh no, the only industry in my town is either coal mining or CSX with the railroad. So or anything heavy equipment with Caterpillar. So my father worked uh, with Caterpillar. So we moved a lot. I went to a lot of elementary schools uh, in different counties, all within about a 2-hour radius of each other. So I moved around a lot, and then ultimately we ended up moving to Florida after my freshman year. So um, I think growing up there from I guess quote unquote humble beginnings, coal mining family, heavy equipment and things like that. You get a perspective of things are okay because you get to watch basketball, you get to play a lot, play with animals. But then the culture shock of moving to Jacksonville, Florida, it was definitely different. So um, I think that all of those things kind of made me, who I am, a little bit, and
Sure,
I'm very happy for it. So
that's awesome. So, I don't think a lot of people, we live in Houston, Texas. Definitely no coal miners in the city of Houston. Definitely no animals. But I mean, I don't think people really understand growing up and seeing people that are coal miners and people working on the railroads, like you grew up looking at people that like they worked, right?
yeah,
They
manual
manual
labor,
labor, physical labor. Yeah, for sure.
right?
So to know that you grew up that way speaks a lot about how you take things. Just from me knowing you, knowing how you
Uh,
approach things, knowing how you look at things, knowing the value that you put on work, right?
yeah, yeah. My parents, my uncles, aunts, everyone, they all worked real hard, and nobody really asked for anything. Nobody expected anything. They just went to work every day and, had calluses on their hands. So many calluses that, I don't really have to have many calluses. They did really well for my brothers and I. So, yeah, I do feel like I have a work ethic, but I do feel like I am definitely a copy of them. So it's not quite as good as the original. So my work ethic is definitely not as good as my parents. I got a bit of spoiled brat in me. So
Yeah, man. But is that really true?
I
Because
don't know.
you went from into a different type of uh, work ethic and hard work, right? Your calluses were formed in different places than your hands, right? You've had to go through
Right.
a lot of things we're going to get into. You veteran of the army, been downrange into those areas of conflict that could be very dangerous, and you got to be on top of your game. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking today, right? And so,
Yeah, very true.
you know, you kind of burned in those calluses in different ways, whether it's leadership or service to your country, things like that. So the calluses that they have from their hands to work hard to be able to give you opportunities afforded you the ability to go do that, right? So I think that although it's different, sometimes the same. Just my opinion,
Yeah, I'd agree.
And speaking of which, so United States Army, why the Army? The Navy's way better, but anyway, why the
Yeah,
Army?
that's what my brother tells me. That's what my dad wanted me to join the Marines. I almost joined the Marines. Uh, I remember his name, Sergeant Nick Meyer. Came to my house and was showing me the videos for the Marines and what boot camp would look like, A school would look like, all those things. The only reason I didn't become a join the Marines is because they couldn't guarantee what my job would be, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing something in the signal world or military police or something that would give me a career afterwards. So the Marines couldn't really say what I would do. So that's what the biggest reason I went with the Army, because they told me what I was going to be. So
Nice. And so, what did you join the Army to do?
originally I joined the Army. I was a military police officer, and then very very shortly after I joined the Army Reserves as a military police officer. So after that, I realized I couldn't get promoted. So then I switched over to Signal Corps. And then as soon as the electronic warfare MOS came out in the Army in about 2004, I got the identifier, went to a couple schools in Huachuca and Fort Sill, and then actually got the 29 Echo identifier in about 2008, I think. So for the rest of my career, I was a UO.
Okay, so you've told me the story, but I think it's a very interesting story how you went from joining and being in the reserves to getting the opportunity to be an active duty soldier. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that? Because it was interesting to hear the process by which you joined, and then you just kept asking and asking and asking, and then you get the opportunity to go active duty.
Yeah, the I joined the reserves because I wasn't for sure if I wanted to do this as a career. So I knew that I was going to do the eight-year obligation, but I thought, I'll do this and then I'll go become a police officer. So I joined and I kind of hedged my bet. I was like, okay, if I join the reserves, I only have to do this part time. But by the time I was probably halfway through basic training, I knew that I wanted to be in the Army as a career. And then I was, in my mind, I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to switch from reserves to active duty like now? So I finished basic training, AIT, airborne school, and then came back home. And this was 1998, or came back home to Jacksonville, Florida in 98. And I was like, talked to my recruiter. I was like, hey, I want to join active right now. And they're like, okay, we'll start working on it. So I went to my reserve unit's first drill like a month or so after I got back, and the whole time we're just sitting in a room. They took us up to a room and like we're basically hiding from the first sergeant or something, so we didn't have to get put on any details. So we're hiding upstairs in a room, and a sergeant major comes through, and he's like, "Hey, have you taken any college?" And I'm like, "Yes, Sergeant Major. taking some college. Well, you need to CLEP out of these tests. You need to CLEP, CLEP, CLEP. So I was like, all right. So I went down to, uh, I guess it was S1. I don't remember where. We went to a room and immediately I signed up to CLEP some tests. And so made that sergeant major happy. Within probably 6 months, they said, okay, you can join active duty. So I got my 4187 to go active, and they gave me a DD 214 for my reserve time, and active duty I was. So uh, this is about the year. This is mid '99 by this time. So originally I was supposed to go to Germany, but my oldest son, who's 21 now, or yeah, 21 now, was being born, and so I asked if I could stay CONUS, and they gave me a reassignment to Fort Campbell. And then I stayed at Fort Campbell for a decade, deploying a bunch, and it was the best thing ever. So I, for me, remembering Sergeant Nick Meyer being in my upstairs living room, me watching videos with my Marine father who really wanted me to join the Marines, and then now to me being at Fort Campbell, uh, it was like a dream come true. I felt that I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. That's where I wanted to be at that time, was at Fort Campbell, not knowing any history of Fort Campbell at the time, of course, but just knowing that the 101st is and the 82nd were like big in the Army lexicon, you know. So I was right where I wanted to be. So that's how
Yeah,
that
I mean,
happened.
you were home.
Yeah, exactly. And being from Kentucky, Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky are two completely different places. Western Kentucky is, where most of the bourbon is made, and then Eastern Kentucky is coal mines and basketball. That's all people really talk about around there. There's all there is. Railroads, and with that hauls the coal, heavy equipment from CSX, which hauls the coal and pushes the coal around, and then Kentucky basketball. So I was I was happy to be back there.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I take from the story, and the reason I say it's so interesting, is as a young soldier, you had a goal, but the sergeant major came in, asked you a question, gave the answer, and he goes, "You need to do this." You know what most people would have done? That have kept hiding in
No,
the room,
right,
right? And you said, "Okay, well, sure." At the end of the day, in the reserve part of it, right? I'm not doing anything else. I might as well.
right.
So for you, it was just like, "Oh, that's a good idea." But I guarantee you, that sergeant major, when they saw your package for active duty and all those things, they were like, "Man, that Cobb kid, he listens. He takes advice, he takes direction, he's motivated." And only because you went and clept some college tests.
Yeah,
That's it.
right.
So it's
Yeah,
just
actually, I
true to
mean, during that day, he had me signed up for so many things. I actually didn't get to CLEP something that very day, but I mean, it was quick. That guy was like, "Sit here, fill this paper out. You know, this you want to take this class. You know about this, so take this class and CLEP that out." I'm like, all right.
I mean, it was an introduction to military mentorship at its finest, right?
Yeah,
Military mentorship in most cases is not necessarily, let me explain to you why this is going to be important so you understand. It's sit down, do this. This is what I want you to do. And then you do it. And then, like, years later, you go, damn, that made sense, right? So, all that experience and those people that were before us that went through all those different things, what they do is they skip all the bad and put you into the good. And you're just like, in some moments, man, this guy's really pushy. He's really trying to avoid you from going down the rabbit hole and getting into all the craziness that they did when they were in. And it happens to everybody. But again, that guy was like, man, that cop kid, he listens. He's motivated.
yeah. And now that you say that, I can still remember. He was the stereotypical reserve sergeant major. I don't know if you know what that means, but to me, he had a pretty large belly, and his BDUs at the time were sticking out because of his large belly, and he was, a bit older. I don't remember his name even, but he was a bit older and had a white hair and everything. And that's all he was about. He was just like, do this, do this, do this. Make sure you're taking care of this. Annotate anything that ever happens to you physically, take care of yourself. And I got that, that was in the first 10 minutes of my Army career, was take care of yourself and always do all these things, always
Yeah.
educate yourself, always know your situational awareness. And this is in the first 10 minutes, and that just echoed throughout my career.
Yeah, well, he's also the prototypical. A lot of those upper leadership guys in reserve communities probably did very well on active duty, and maybe he was put there to be in a leadership position for reserves because a lot of times those places really need it, right? They need someone who can lead. Unfortunately, for the most part, when you have a good leader in a reserve unit, nobody listens to him because I got to go
Right.
do my job and I get paid other than this, and they're not paying attention. So when those people that are like the sergeant major that you were introduced to, when they find someone that listens to them, dude, it's the world. It's the
Mm,
world to them because they're like, oh, somebody's listening to what I'm telling them, and this Cobb kid's gonna be all right. He's gonna do
right.
well. But a lot of
There's
people
a
hear what they're saying. They think they're crazy old men sometimes.
and they very well may be, but even crazy old people have a few good points every now and then, and that was a resounding good point for me.
Oh,
I
for
mean,
sure.
thinking back, it's the same way, same leadership style. I was never really a explain myself all the way through, as a senior leader, even as a young sergeant or a corporal. Even I was never one to say, this is why you need to do this. I was, you know get your ass over there and do this, and then I'll tell you why. After you do it, after you have the experience, I'll explain to you why it's important. And so that was kind of my leadership style throughout my Army career. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes it may not have been good. But ultimately, what I always told all my soldiers was, I'm going to push every button you have because I need to know how you're going to react under pressure when we're actually in
Under
Iraq or
pressure.
Afghanistan. So I was probably very difficult.
Uh, I don't know. Were you difficult or were you efficient and effective? You know,
I
I
was
mean, being
effective. I know I was effective.
yeah,
I may not have been efficient, but I was definitely effective.
yeah, because so many people think that being super direct like that is like the way to for you to say, oh, a lot of people say what you said. I was difficult and stuff like that. But I remember in my Navy career when I was young in recruiting, I had a chief that was the area supervisor, called them zone supervisors back then. He would go on vacation or he would be away or he'd have to go do meetings for the chiefs in the district. So every time he would leave, I would be sitting in for him. Okay. So probably after one or two times of sitting in for him, everything went well and it was good. I started to do it a lot more. So in my mind, I'm like, this guy's lazy. He just wants me to do his job so he doesn't have to do anything. And I had all of the junior military member complaints. I'm doing all the work, he's doing none of it, and I still got to do my job, and I still got to figure me out, right? It was always about me. And then I get promoted, and then I make, chief, and then I go on to do the same job he was doing, and just one day it clicked, right? It just came through. Like I thought he was what you said that you went through. Like I was difficult, and I was very to the point, and so was he. But I realized he was setting me up. He
Hmm.
was setting me up, and he never had to explain it to me because I guess he knew eventually I'd figure it out. And that's kind of, I called him when, when I realized, and he answered the phone. I was like, "You are an a-hole," and he's
Hmm.
like, "What?" Like, you had me doing all this stuff, and he goes, you must be a DLCPO now. I was like, "Yes, I am." I went all Kevin Hart on him. Yes, I am. But he, it was good, and he was like, "See, that's why I have people do what I do." But then I really started to notice around and think back. My leadership always explained why you had to do something to somebody that it's probably a bad way to put it, but probably didn't have the potential to excel and go higher, right? They always had to tell the person why that they knew was difficult or just wasn't with the program, basically, right?
Hmm.
But people that they knew had potential or aspirations to go higher, they normally didn't explain anything to them. People just went and did it.
Right. Yeah, an archetype that goes with certain leaders. I was a leader that, I would just tell people what to do, and I would expect them to immediately do what I said, and any deviation from my plan needed to be back briefed immediately, kind of thing. And I did notice as I got promoted that I would have to deal with newer, younger uh, people that came into the army because they had different experiences. And I said, that I didn't have to have calluses. Well, other people, maybe they didn't have to do chores or they weren't have a certain expectation. So I did have to change my leadership style at some point to be able to communicate with new people that come into the unit, because you get into such a one track mind of thinking with especially in the early 2000s after 9/11, 2001, of course. uh, all you're doing is getting ready to deploy, deploying, coming home, having very short time to train or learn anything that's very valuable for a TTP that you're going to do when you go to war. You're just practicing, or you're just training to go to war. You're prepping your equipment, prepping yourself, prepping your, all of your health. Got to make sure you get all your shots and dental, so you're not a Category 4. But it becomes such a cycle of deploy, come home, get ready to deploy, deploy, come home, get ready to deploy, that I felt like I did need to start explaining things more. So it got to the point to where, I would sit all my soldiers in my office, and I would I would do a PowerPoint and explain to them why we do something, and then get their feelings on it. And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't, but you had to try something new, because after a decade at Fort Campbell on all the deployments, I think I deployed from Fort Campbell 6 times. Um, yeah, 6 times. And then having to get ready for all that, you have to come up with new ways to motivate yourself, for one, and then to convey whatever the mission may be, and then to motivate the soldiers, which is extremely important, to have them motivated for what they're going to do. Most kids want to know what they're going to be doing when they're downrange, and so I had to convey a lot of that. So I would say that um, it was easy for me to be authoritarian. It was definitely harder in my leadership style to be understanding and listen more. I was definitely later in my career, I realized I had two ears and one mouth. I think earlier in my career, I realized that my mouth was very loud. So, but yeah, had to change.
Well, I mean, I think that being direct and leading the way that you did because of the job that you had, right? There's, there's some jobs where discussion really shouldn't come into the play, right?
Oh yeah, I
And
100%
so
agree.
finding new ways to teach somebody what it's going to be like on deployment, right? You've been down there, you know what's going on, you know what it's all about. I think that's what made it probably easier to be authoritarian, right? Like, this is what you need to do, and this is all you need to think about, because this guy has been there a few times and I know what we're going into, especially for those new people that are coming in. Because I don't know, you tell me, you can explain something to somebody on what it's going to be like forever. You can have
Hmm.
a whole pre-deployment class on what to expect. But until the moment that you get there and you walk into the arena, you have no idea. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
no doubt.
and everybody's going to handle it differently. So I think, tell me what you think about, I think the biggest challenges for the leaders in the military that were over there was when you got there, watching your soldiers, sailors, Marines, like watching how they reacted immediately after getting there. And that's in some cases where the training starts.
Hmm.
I need to see their reaction. I need to see how they're reacting here. Like, we talked about it forever, but we were in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. They were going to
Right.
McDonald's and they were going to the movie theater and they were going to hang out. And now sandstorms, sirens going off, so the training probably really started when you got there, right? We
Oh yeah,
talked
no
about a
doubt.
lot of stuff, but now we've got to, view them and make sure everything is going well and that, they're in the right place. Or if they act a little different, hey, come here, need to talk to you. So
Yeah, you got to know what your baseline is for all of your soldiers' personalities. So people are going to act a certain way when they're under pressure. People are going to act a certain way when they're completely at ease. They're going to act one way. And the biggest I guess barometer for how something was going to go would be if when you landed in Kuwait and those doors opened and that 115-degree 0% humidity, just dry heat hits you, and you realize that you're not in Kansas anymore, and this is a war zone, or you're about to be in a war zone.
yeah,
Whether you go through Kuwait or Manis, Kyrgyzstan, or whatever those places would be for your entry into Iraq or Afghanistan. Once you actually get there and you see the environment, you do have to do a little check on everybody, see how they are actually doing. They may be great on a live fire exercise, and you think they're a T at every single task that they have when they're back at Fort Campbell, but when they hit the ground in Iraq or Afghanistan, and like you said, indirect fire sirens start going off, people react differently. So that's why you really do have to push people really, really hard in training and try to make it as realistic as possible. So I feel that I did that from at the time, from a signal or electronic warfare perspective. I couldn't tell them what it was like to kick doors down every day, but I could definitely tell you what it's like to do uh, a route clearance mission and then have a vehicle get blown up and then go out there and have to read those Duke systems or whatever ID defeat systems that the vehicles had. Go out there and have to read them and figure out what frequency this is being used for this remote control IED device. So, and that was their jobs to do that and fix those systems. So you learn real quick that you may have a huge fear of being there, but you got to do your job still. So
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it makes sense, right? The easiest way to see what they're going to be like under calm is during the workup, right? But it's good to you put that pressure on them while they were in, and I think that the pressure is going to be different when you're like in country versus when you're in like Fort Campbell, right? But tell me what you think on this. I think that if I put pressure on somebody to get something done, like military wise, right, and they know that there's an accountability measure or repercussion, and for you getting this done, and I put that pressure on you, you still will see how they react under pressure. It
oh
doesn't matter
yeah.
what the pressure is. So that's where you came in. That was great, right? From being down there and knowing what's going on, like you can apply the right amount of pressure, and so it's you did great.
I laughed a second ago because when you said Fort Campbell and kind of the progression of getting ready for deployment, it reminded me of a story. But I had a sergeant major that was actually at Fort Polk. Uh, I was already a sergeant first class at the time, so I was one of his section NCOs. So he always had me in his office. We tried to instill knowledge in me. He's like, "Look here, Cobb, you got to get a light coat on everybody, daily, just a light coat." And I'm like, at first, I mean, I didn't know what he meant when he said you got to get a light coat. And I was like, Sergeant Major, what do you mean light coat? You got to turn up the heat, man. You got to get a light coat on everybody every day. And I'm like, all right, I got you. And then months and months, he would just go back to this phrase, a light coat. I would hear him, walking by with, the brigade sergeant major or someone else from his leadership team. Yeah, yeah, old Cobb down there is getting a light coat on them soldiers. And I would realize that it's a literal meaning of you got to do PT, get a light coat of sweat on everybody, but you also have to put people into situations to where it's going to test their mental capacity, their nerve capacity, uh, their wits. Basically, you got to give them challenges throughout the training cycle in order to get them ready to deploy. So a light coat, to me, you know, at first I was like, "Was it cold here at Fort Polk?" No, it's not a light coat. It's a light coat of sweat. Gotcha. Yeah, and I use that for the rest of my career, which was only like 4 years. But I wish I'd have met that guy earlier because he had some insight.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is you take bits and pieces from everybody that you meet, and I don't know, maybe you met that guy at the right time.
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's just how it works out.
Yeah. So let me tell you a story that you reminded me of when I laughed a minute ago.
Okay.
So we're getting ready to deploy in '07 to Iraq, and we knew at this time it was going to be a 15-month deployment, and that extra 3 months on a
Ouch.
deployment at the time was just it was like some mind screw. It messed with you. It was only 3 more months, but damn, 15 months in a zone, that just sucked. So um, the we're ramping up, and I don't think we're probably like a month away from deploying. So all of our live fire exercises are pretty much getting ready, and we're tailing off, and we're getting ready to take some leave. But we've still got a bunch of admin things to do, and it's probably one of those days where the first sergeant's screaming at me, "You got a soldier that's Cat 4 dental? Get him over there and get him a cleaning or something." Just admin tasks. And one of my soldiers comes to me. He says, "Sergeant Cobb, I really need to get off early today." I'm like, "What do you?" I won't use any names, but what do you need to get off early for? He's like, "I got something I got to do." All right, what do you got to do? He's like, "Well, I'm a healer and people need me." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm a healer and people need me." This is a kid. He's like 19 years old. And he's like, "I'm a healer and people need me. I play World of Warcraft and we have a raid going on tonight." I'm like, I've at this point, I think this was Iraq in '07, '09 was my sixth deployment. So I think I deployed 5 times. I was about to go on my sixth. And this kid says to me, "I have a raid on an online World of Warcraft game." And I say, at first I was, the knife hand was about to come out and I was about to get him. But then I was like, all right, buddy, go ahead, but I tell you what, we're all coming to watch. So I took the whole shop. There was like 5 or 6 of us there. We went upstairs and we watched him do this raid with World of Warcraft, and that broke the monotony. And I gained that kid's trust probably from not reacting like Sergeant Cobb would with the knife hand, but reacting just like a human being would with, "Oh, this is your interest. I'll take an interest in your interest." And I still talk to that kid to this day. Like he's in Washington D.C. I think he works for the VA. He's an IT guy. He rides a one wheel, those little one wheel things all around Washington D.C. Takes pictures all the time. Couldn't be happier probably. And I love his story. I think he's from a small little town in Indiana. So he's nobody from nowhere that made something of himself because he joined the military. So I thought it was amazing. But
No, that's
yeah,
funny.
World of Warcraft.
I could just imagine what was going through your head when the kid was like, "Sergeant Cobb, I'm a healer and people need me." You're probably like, "What is her name?"
Well, the rest of the shop, the rest of my guys were there, and I think they overheard that part of the conversation. At least his team leader did, and they ended up making like we would wear tan shirts underneath our BDUs and ACUs and whatnot. But they ended up making a T-shirt for underneath that says, "I'm a healer. I'm a commo healer. People need me." So we
Oh,
kind of,
nice.
yeah. So he wore that during the deployment. It became, people still talk about it today. So it was pretty damn funny.
No, it became a thing. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
then I guarantee you, when he's asking you, as a young kid, who's probably like, "This dude's about to light me up because I'm asking to get off early to play a video game." I don't
Right.
know what I would have done in that situation. I think I
I
would have
think I
been.
was shocked by his honesty. And he could have said, he could have lied and said, "Oh, I got to go pay a bill," or something. But he said, "I'm a healer and people need me." He was a shadow priest, so the whole uh, deployment, he would go to the MWR and try to play World of Warcraft and to get his level up to like 79 or something like that. I remember at
Yeah.
some point he was a shadow priest 79. So that story I remember details of the story 23 years later. So pretty pretty cool.
That's awesome. Right, well, and to him, maybe he wasn't thinking that you were gonna like react differently because it was so important to him. He was just like, "They need me," and it's just like going, "I need to go on the convoy. They need me." Right?
Right.
This dude was like, "They need me. I don't know any of these people, but they need me."
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right?
It is. It totally is. He was in on the ground floor with that online gaming stuff, though. I'm telling you.
Oh, for sure. So great career in the Army, most of it in Fort Campbell, home in Kentucky. So coming out of the Army, tell me some of the things that you got into and kind of what helped you get into them and what you still kind of do today.
So, uh, in 2017, I retired, and so March of 17, we moved to Houston, Texas. So the only reason I really have to come to Houston is because my ex-wife lives here with five of my children. So my wife and I, we were thinking, where should we go? Should we go to Houston? Should we go to Jacksonville, Florida? We really thought about Denver, Colorado, and I really like Albuquerque, New Mexico. I loved New Mexico when I was stationed out at White Sands. So we're thinking about all these, and the obvious choice is I need to come to Houston because my kids are here, so I can see them go through high school. So, some of them had just graduated, and the other four were. Uh, I think when I moved here, my second oldest daughter was a junior or senior, so I got to see a little bit of that. And then the thing that got me started with uh, doing the other things that I did was really the fact that I didn't have a regimented schedule to follow. Excuse me, every day. So I got to the point to where my PTS had kind of overcome me a little bit because I didn't really have a mission anymore. So depression, a lot of anxiety about public places, a lot of uh, fear of not knowing what's going to happen next. So I actually went to see a therapist, and they told me I should do Toastmasters. It's a way to get out in public, immerse yourself, and have to give speeches in front of people. So I did that a couple times, and then I got involved with a chamber of commerce here in Spring Klein, right where I live, and I started doing marketing and operations for them. I ended up working there for more than 2 years. So with the Chamber of Commerce, it kind of introduced me to other veteran service organizations, other businesses in the community. Eh, First and foremost is it was my job to kind of market them on our website. So in that, my interactions got to be to where I was talking to people from, Lone Survivor Foundation, definitely the VFWs. So I joined the VFWs in Tomball, and I actually went to work for Lone Survivor Foundation as well. And I think it was 2018 is when I started. So yeah, very involved with Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. There's a bunch of veterans that ride motorcycles and like to do good for other veterans. Their motto is "Vets helping vets," and they do just that. And let's see, I don't know. I did a lot of stuff. There's a long list of things that I did, but a lot of it was kind of meshed together. So it didn't seem like it was different stuff. It seemed like it was all kind of one big thing. So
Yep, one big thing. So is that like equal to doing all those things made you busy, which made you feel like you had structure and a regiment to attain and get done, right? Like you have all this stuff to do. So now you got to get it all done. So now you're pre-deployment planning, right? Getting everything in line about what you need to do, right? So
yeah, I didn't realize that when I was in the army that I needed that. So if I'm just doing one thing, if I'm just having to concentrate on one thing, it's hard for me to concentrate. I don't know if it's ADHD or what, but if I have multiple things that I'm doing, I seem to be able to focus a lot more as opposed to if I'm just doing one thing, I feel like I'm not doing enough.
well, we all feel that way when we get out, right? I was the
Right.
same kind of way, when you get to the level that we got to in the military, and you're that, the senior leader, and you got soldiers or sailors under you, their problems are your problems, and what they need to fix, you need to fix, and you still are at home, and then you're still doing the job, and you're still looking for other things to get into as if you didn't have enough already. And so I've kind of seen that materialize coming out, right?
Hmm.
Same with me being out of the Navy. Like I'm, I get into so much stuff. but it keeps you
I know
busy
you know exactly what I'm talking about when I
for
say
sure.
that you can't do just one thing. It just doesn't feel
Mhm.
like you're working if you just do one thing. It just
Yeah. I definitely see that. But you know what I'm starting to figure out and learn, and quite honestly, I'm learning because, my wife is very observant and she's very able to sit back and look at things and tell you, although most of the time you don't want to hear what someone's telling you, but it's true. So I started to realize, right? I do so many things because I need to be busy, right? Because I
hmm
feel more productive when I'm busy. Starting to realize the more that I do, the less effective I am.
yeah,
Because when I start to think about when I was in the Navy and I was going towards retirement, I was able to delegate a lot. So I
right.
did have a lot going on. I had a lot going on, but I wasn't doing it. I was managing it. So I was really only doing one or two things, and everybody else was doing like all these separate pockets, right? You were delegating and leading the way that we were taught to without realizing I'm not doing everything. So I'm coming to grips slowly but surely that less is more, and be focused on what you're trying to do. And then, I mean, really build a team around you to have that feeling again of being on a team working towards a mission. But you don't, for me personally, I'm starting to realize I don't need to do it in 10 different places.
Well, yeah, you saying those makes me realize that too. There's a lot of truth in what you're saying. It's uh, you don't realize how much that you do manage as a in the military period. You have even if you're a young PFC or a young private, in the Army, you're still having to manage multiple things. So and that only builds. So by the time you're a sergeant first class, senior NCO, master sergeant, or sergeant major, you really are tap dancing on a lot of different subjects. So I didn't realize that probably until the way you said it makes you
Hmm.
realize that, yeah, you probably are only doing a couple things effectively, but you're managing a lot of people that are very effective at what they do. So
For sure.
when
And
you
the
get out and you have to do everything yourself, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I think the reason that you're able to manage those people the way that you are is because of what you just said. Like as a private, you had to do all that stuff. So whether it was do these three or four things today or one thing at a time I had to learn to do. But what I do remember being in the Navy, young sailor in the Navy, if my chief gave me a job to do, don't you ask me about what that guy's doing. I need you to do that. When you
hmm
get done with that, we'll talk about the next thing. So he was managing everything, but he was teaching us to do each individual thing, right? So really when I became a leader, I was familiar with everything someone needed to do, so I could hold the expectation of what needed to be done because I've
Right.
done the job. And so that's as I'm moving forward and going further along now, it's like I'm getting smart after I got out, right? I thought I was already smart when I got out. The reality is you're still growing every day and you're still trying to figure life out, right? And you just don't never have it figured out. So I'm again slowing down to go fast, right? I used to tell
hmm
people that a lot when I was in the Navy and we were doing recruiting or we were in the CBs. A lot of the times you had to tell a lot of people, it's like, and even right now, I coach kids in lacrosse. You got to tell them slow down. You're not going to be the best player in the field yet. You just got here. You got to build and you got to work towards it. So sometimes you have to slow down and realize that you need to fall off the coffee table trying to pull yourself up when you were trying to walk and fail constantly in order to finally succeed in taking those first two steps.
Right.
So slowly but surely. And I'm gonna tell you, it's really hard to come to grips with that for me.
hmm
Yeah. It's just really hard to look back and go, man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I can't do everything.
I mean, well,
I realize
yeah,
now that I was able to put together and build a phenomenal team of people to work with me. And that's why. And again, you're taught that as a leader. It's not about you. It's about the team.
yeah,
But for some reason, when you get out and you don't attain the same success, you realize you don't have the boys with you no more. You're going to have to go find that new team of people that you can contribute to, start from the bottom, grow your way up, and then get that success again. So it's like you forgot there's a starting point. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. I mean, it brings to mind in the army at least. It's all it's instilled in you, I guess, from the beginning that you're always training your replacement.
Mm-hmm.
So me as a sergeant E5, staff sergeant E6, sergeant first class E7, master sergeant E8, you're always training that person that's your team leader or your squad leader or whatever. You're teaching them to do your job so that it ultimately it trains them, but it also makes everything more efficient because everyone understands from the top all the way down to the lowest private and then back up through, because the private, once he knows something, once he or she knows something, they're going to want to tell all their friends that they know something so that they can look good and then they can have an understanding. So you have a shared understanding of what the mission is and what the right answers is straight from the book. And then that kind of trickles from the top down and then from the bottom up. And
Yep.
so once everybody understands everything, it makes everybody's job easier. And then in 2017, I didn't have those teams. I didn't have those 5 to 6 NCOs. I didn't have those 20 to 25 lower enlisted people doing all the great work that I'm, kind of pulling the strings to. You don't have that. You got to do it all yourself. So there is a reckoning that happens in your mind. Am I going to be able to do this myself? Do I have those skills to be able to hit the buttons, or was I just a good leader and I can't actually be a technician on something? But you have to go back to your roots and figure out what you are good at and do that.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point of, when you get out, like that's where frustration, I guess. It's a good
Yeah.
word to put it. Just the frustration of like success isn't there as it's always been for you. And a lot of times people that ascend to the ladder that you got to or the one that I got to in the military, you were that way for at least 10 years. You were
Hmm.
in that position, right? So you were trained and you knew very well how to build the team and lead the team because the United States Army, the United States Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, they're feeding you the people you need.
Right.
Like I'm not hiring anybody. Well, I was hiring people as a recruiter in the end, but what I mean is even if you look at it from that perspective, a lot of times most military members when they see recruiters in any service, they give them crap, right? And they're like, "Oh, you're recruiters, blah blah blah." But my argument always used to be, well, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
You're welcome. But at the same time, you see that paradigm shift. Like we feed that in, and the people that we feed in that decide to raise their hand and volunteer are then fed on to you. So now you get to get them after they've been done their indoctrination to the military of like you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, you have to be places on time, you have to go to bed early, you got to do your job, you have to make sure that you wear clean clothes, you got to clean your room, right? They learn that there's rules and regulations, and they understand that complete clay, and then they come to
Hmm.
you and you get to mold them into what they're going to be going forward.
Let me ask you a question. What was your favorite part of being a recruiter? Was it having that clay and from when you pull them out of high school or college and they come into your office, or and then you got them on the floor at MEPS and then got them off to basic training and whatnot? Or was it after, when you heard, when they would undoubtedly come back to you, some of them would, and say, hey, uh, chief, uh, I passed. What made you prouder, when they came back or when you sent them off? What gave you the most satisfaction, I guess?
So I think that that changed as the career went on, if that
Right.
makes sense, right? In the beginning, as a recruiter, um, fresh new recruiter, trying to do a good job. My wife jokes with me all the time. When the phone would ring, I'd be like, I'd jump because
Mhm.
I was like, "There's something wrong. There's a problem. What did I do wrong?" I was always like, I had anxiety if the phone rang, right? because there was
Especially
a
the bat
problem.
phone, right? The Gov phone.
Exactly. So in the beginning, it was solely I just needed to do what they needed me to do so that I could keep people off my back, right? I really wasn't thinking about the overreaching meaning behind it. But later on, I looked to convert to be a recruiter full time. I loved being in the CBs. I loved doing construction. I mean, it was amazing. But then you get to, transfer and move. Got all these letters from all these kids because I started recruiting in New Orleans, right? And I would get letters from kids going, if it wasn't for you, I'd be in jail. I'd be dead. I'd be in a gang. I got like another opportunity. I'm the first one in my family to do anything, right? Things like that. I was like, man, you're just changing someone's life for the better, right? And so that is what made me like being a recruiter. But then as I became like higher up, became a first class and a chief in the Navy, I think it was what you just said. You see these kids come back, and you remember what they look like when they walk in the door. You know, torn up jeans. They don't know what the meaning of like yes sir, no sir, yes chief, no chief, and you're trying to instill those values of the military to them before they go. And the reality is they're civilians, so they don't have to until they get there. To see them come back and talk about how they were in charge at basic training and nobody else knew what was going on, but I was ready when I got there. That's the that's where you feel really good about it. But the ultimate payback is seeing their name on a selection list.
Oh yeah.
So when you're, in the Navy, I don't know how it goes in the Army for like promotion lists when they come out, but in the Navy, when you promote to third class, second class, first class, and even chief, senior chief, master chief, the advancement results come out. So they're released through a naval message. They're actually public information. Every time promotion happens in the Navy, you can see every single person's name that promotes in the Navy.
Mm.
Everybody. So when you see those lists come out, like some of our recruiters would be like, "Oh, Seaman such and such is up for promotion," and we would look through the list, man. And when you start to see a whole bunch of people you put in promoting, dude, it's amazing because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh man, they're doing a good job." The best joke is when you see a recruiter that's like maybe they're on their second or third tour recruiting, right? They're about to retire, and let's say they're a first class, and a new chief checks into the command. And that first class is like, I put that kid in the Navy. We're like, dude, they outrank you now. What's going on?
Right.
I mean, it just you see the turn and the difference and how they look, right? And how they react. And it's amazing to see them go into that machine of the military and come out on the other end just a completely different person with the same exact values and personality they had going in. Now they have more of a focus.
Mm-hmm. So I saw that not so much with my direct soldiers that were in my chain of command or under me in the chain of command. But I got out. I was able to medically retire right at 18 years. Um, so a lot of my peers that were sergeants first class with me in my same year group, they went on to become first sergeants. Master sergeants, E8s, and E9 sergeant majors. And seeing those guys, people that I remember, running around with when I was a PFC or a specialist or, a corporal and brand new leader, and then seeing the transformation, and most of it's from Facebook, you'll see, how people are living. So,
Sure.
there's not a lot of firsthand knowledge, but just seeing the fact that they made it there. And I remember a lot of these people, how good they were at boards, which is when you're good at boards, you're basically good at facing movements and you're good at knowledge, right? And you know how to conduct yourself when being interviewed.
Hmm.
So a lot of these people were amazing at boards, and now they're the leaders of the Army, of the MP. A lot of my friends that were in my year group that I knew when I first joined were military police officers. So I've kept very close with a lot of those guys that I deployed with. And there's actually a couple ladies that I think they hit like 22 years recently, and both of them are retiring, and both of them one's a master sergeant, I think one's a sergeant first class. But I remember going to boards with these ladies back in '99 and 2000, and when we were both E4 and below, and then now seeing them retiring as first sergeants and sergeant majors and sergeant first classes with 23 years, in, I just like it makes you proud.
Oh,
So
absolutely. You know how you know you're getting old?
my
You,
body aches.
you don't recognize any name on the promotion list.
Yeah, yeah,
When you start to go in your own, like, so in the Navy, in our own community, right? You have Navy recruiting as a whole is a very small world. So when you start to see names on the selection list for chief, and you're like, I don't even know who that is. You're like, it's
right.
time to go. It's time to go. I'm ready to-
I have a buddy that I went to basic with, AIT with. I can't remember if he was in jump school with me, but he probably was because I think he's like got all kinds of stacks over here, airborne, air assault, and everything. Um, but I think he's like a year older than me, so he's like 48 years old. And there's still video, and he does something. It's either ROTC or something. He's still somehow involved in the military. Recently retired, like in the last year or so, but he's still out there doing jujitsu. Uh, and he's like a brown or black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he has been since forever. I remember this guy being an intense individual when we were both E1 privates, right? So sorry, my phone was buzzing at me. And he's out there rolling on the mat with a bunch of young soldiers, teaching them jiu-jitsu now. He may still, I think he's active guard or AGR or something like that. Either
Mm.
way, he's a sergeant major. And we went to basic and AIT together. And I see the
Wow.
effect that he's still having at 48 years old out there rolling with people doing jujitsu for combatives in the army. It's just amazing to me that people that um, God just surrounds you with people that are going to be of benefit. I mean, I can say the same thing about you. I met you. I didn't know who you were, and I met you up in Oklahoma, and we ended up talking for 3 hours after knowing each other for 45 minutes. You know, that's you just hit it off with certain people. Certain people just hit it off with, and I've been very lucky to have a lot of those people in my life that I've just hit it off with.
Well,
So
that's good. I mean, it's also taking advantage of those opportunities, right? Um, Recognizing that something's there and just wanting to sit down and explore it. I think the thing that's different in the world today is a lot of people are too in a hurry, right?
yeah,
They don't want to take the time to sit down and talk to someone. Everything has to be given right now. I don't have time to wait. And I'm part of that problem. But like you said, I had a conversation with you for a little bit and I was like, man, I want to I want to sit here and talk and get to know Ty better, right? Because you don't meet very many people that have an open outlook to everything, right? So
hmm
much stuff today is closed and you really would like to be friends with people, but you can't find a common ground because they're too ingrained in their ways, right? We're getting to a point where your beliefs are your beliefs, and if you're not willing to think that there's the ability for it to be okay for others to believe other things, you just can't relate to them, you know? So that's why I was like, man, this guy actually talks about a whole bunch of different stuff, and it's very interesting to know. And anybody that ever served their country as long as you did, I like talking to them to ask, what was it like for you, and what kind of things did you experience, and getting to know that person, right? And then for me now, like I said, I'm in so many different things. Before I thought that I needed to talk to everybody because I needed to have an opportunity to be involved in everything that they were being involved in. So I guess you could call that self-serving in a little bit, but also I realize now I was just networking, just meeting new people, learning what they do, and just if there's ever an opportunity for me to help you or you to help, whatever. Like I realized in the civilian world, because in the military we network all the time, but we get to network because you and I are wearing the same thing on our uniform. We're automatically networked.
hmm
I mean, we're both chiefs, we're both sergeant first classes, or in a joint command, we're both in the Navy. Like we've already networked. The work's already done for me. I know you. Outside, you have to be willing to talk to people.
hmm
And so I just realized, I went to a networking event recently with veterans and just realizing the whole point is to get to know people. And so when like I said, when I met you, I was like, I think that, and I know you do a lot more than just the lone survivor and the VFW. And the thing that I appreciate the most is you don't do those things because you have to be involved in something, because you miss being there, right? So there's a lot of people that get involved with organizations out of 100% necessity. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, because sometimes you need to be around those like minded people. But the part about you that's unique is you don't do it for that reason. You're 100% there because the people that you're there to network with or meet or help need the help. You're a giver, dude. You just want to give your time to make sure everybody gets the help they need without the expectation of something in return. So when I first met you, I was like, this guy is a selfless individual, right? And that's why, like, I sat down and wanted to have the conversation that we had before. That's why I'm glad we got to talk today, because
Oh, definitely.
people need to know about that. You're not going
Yeah,
to
I
tell them.
tell you, the you saying that reminds me of a story from my mother. So my mom probably is the reason why I'm so open to other people's ideas, their story, their likes, their dislikes, basically their culture. Um, so I don't know if you remember a movie called Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze. So
Mm-mm.
uh, is a movie about, it was a very stereotypical movie. At the time, I love Patrick Swayze from this movie called Red Red Dawn was one of them, and then there was
Yep.
another one where he's like a Conan character, is called Red Steel maybe or something like that. Anyway, I loved all the Patrick Swayze movies, and he was filming a movie called Next of Kin in Hazard, Kentucky, or near Hazard. And he was staying at this real nice hotel in Hazard. So naturally, when the movie came to VHS tape, I wanted to watch it. So we watched it, and the movie is completely stereotypical of people from the mountains of southeastern Kentucky. With the accents, with the their interest. All they are is either a moonshine dealer, some kind of meth head, or they like to drive around with buses full of snakes and handle snakes because of religious activities. So every trope, every movie trope that you could possibly throw in this movie about stereotypical things in southeastern Kentucky was in this movie. And I remember just watching this movie just for the entertainment value. It was like, hell yeah, you don't mess with Kentucky people. And then I remember looking at my mom at some point after the movie, and she's like, she had her arms crossed. She's like, that movie is stupid. And I'm like, why? And but then let me throw some context on this. When I'm saying this, I probably sound like the stereotypical Kentucky guys. Why you think that sounds, why you think that sounds stupid, mom? Probably had an act. I can't even do the accent that I had when I was growing up. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But my mom was like, anybody that watches this movie is going to think anybody from southeastern Kentucky is an idiot, you know? So I don't like that. You have to be open to what people's experiences are, where they're from. So there's a part of the movie where they go to New York City, so it's the same stereotypical way of New York City. Everybody's on coke or something.
Yeah.
So um, I remember that having a huge effect on me. And right after my freshman year of high school, we moved to Jacksonville, Florida. So that was a whole new culture. It was a Navy town. I lived at the beach. It was all kinds of different cultures in the high school that I had not been exposed to in Knott County, Kentucky. It was just very, very different. So with those things, I think that made me very interested in all the new people that I'd met. And then I eventually lost whatever accent that was. And my mom, uh, she was a nurse, so she moved around and Daytona and Jacksonville and Miami for a little while, Palm Coast, Florida. So we moved a lot as well then, but once we got to Jacksonville, we pretty much stayed there. And so Jacksonville, the Navy city that it is, there's so many different cultures that are there. The beach area is one way. It's got a big metropolis downtown. So Jacksonville actually made me appreciate different cultures, very that I hold them near and dear to me now. So
See, there it is. That's good to know.
Yeah, there it is.
Which is crazy, right? So think about it, this way. If you, I don't know, I guess the same could be said for being a part of, the United States. If you live in this country's the best, and all these different things. You said that was your mom that told you that, right?
Hmm.
She should have like taught classes to everybody in the world. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, just because you think you know doesn't mean you know.
right.
Right. Not everybody feels the same way about everything, and that's good advice.
Yeah, she gave some good advice. She passed away in 2007 from Brugada syndrome. So, learning about Brugada syndrome and learning, some of the actual chemical makeup of what makes me me. It makes you realize that you don't know a lot about yourself if you're just, oh yeah, I'm from Kentucky. Well, well, okay, so what have you experienced? What do you want to experience? What do you think you would like to maybe try?
Mm.
And those are all things that were encouraged with me. I lived in Canada for a while. I was able to go work on a fishing boat. My parents encouraged that. They encouraged me to try new things a lot, and gave me a lot of latitude when I was a teenager. I was, I was a bit wild. I worked in clubs. I was a bouncer for a long time, so they put up with all those shenanigans, because ultimately they knew that they could pull me back real quick, because we had a good rapport, a good relationship. They could tell me, Ty, you're messing up here, but yeah, go have fun. So it was all the way my parents raised me is way better than what I feel that I did with my kids, because there's no way I could be as free with my kids that my parents were with me,
Why do you think that is?
because of my fear of that they would get it caught into something that maybe I've not prepared them for. I feel like my parents prepared me a lot better for things than I prepared my kids. And that's just, the inequities of everybody thinks. My parents probably thought the same thing. Oh my gosh, we're screwing this kid up. In reality, they were really building me up well. So hopefully I've done that to my kids, but you always feel like you screw your kids up.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. I'll give you the best analogy ever, because we always say that the military is just a sample of the actual population, right? Just because you're
Hmm.
in the military doesn't mean that you're still not the prototypical American citizen or whatever, right? We are a snapshot of society, 100%. The only difference is that there's rules and regulations, and like, I guess you could call it double jeopardy. Like, if you do something wrong, like, you're gonna get in trouble, right?
Hmm.
When I was young and you were young and we were in the military and we were just growing up as like E3s, E4s, do you know what the chiefs or the sergeant first classes, the master chiefs, and the sergeant majors were saying? We are screwed
Right.
when these guys get in charge. Like,
Yeah,
there's
this is who is
no way,
taking over.
right? There's no way we're ever going to make it. And I
Right.
found myself late in the Navy being like, oh, we're so screwed when these people take over. And then I went, oh my God.
I think I
Somebody
really
said
bit
that
hard
about,
on that when I first got out. I was like, these millennials, they're going to screw up the military. But then after my interaction over the last 5 years now of being out, um, talking to some of the Navy recruiters in the area here, Army recruiters, having events, you realize they're just as cool as you were, and they're probably just as knowledgeable. And I think we're going to be okay, because, like you said, that cross section of America that decides without a draft that they're going to volunteer for the military under any circumstance that it is, whether it's you go to the military or go to jail, or my family was in the military, so I'm going to join the military, or I have no idea how I'm going to pay for college, so I want someone to pay for my college. I'm going to join the military. Whatever reason it may be, these are all amazing reasons to join the military, and that person had to actually volunteer and say, I'm going to do this. So automatically that's a built-in respect for me. It doesn't matter if they, I would
oh, yeah,
I would rather
absolutely.
them be able to fulfill their enlistment and not get out after a year, but even so, still they
Yeah.
they still volunteered.
Well, I mean, I think that just because times are changing, right? So if you really think about like when we were coming up in the military, when we were younger, right? Prior to that time, the military was run off of, I guess you could call it like the fear factor, right?
Yeah.
Like when you watch the movies like Platoon, or you watch the movies like
I am Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, your senior drill instructor. Yeah, that elicits a response in
yeah,
your brain when you hear that.
and it's pounded, right? Like there's no
Right.
way to do it but my way, and if you go any other way but the way I tell you to do it, this is what we're going to do. But you also have to remember that a lot of the senior leadership of those people that we thought were the old salty guys, their leadership was taught by the leadership of World War II in Korea, where there was no other way to do it. You do it this way, and that's it. And if you don't, it's bad. And so as we go forward and forward, right, each generation is taught by the generation before. And when you start to realize what they were taught, that's where your thoughts change and they become different, right? So
Mm-hmm.
right now, because we just see people doing things differently, we are the old man on the porch yelling at the kid to get off my grass. You're gonna kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Close the door. You're letting the AC out. I ain't spending money to AC and cool the neighborhood, so you need to close that door,
Right. That
right?
is the sergeant major's grass. Get off that grass. Yeah.
Right?
I still have an aversion to walking over grass sometimes,
Yeah.
especially at post offices or things like that. I
Oh,
can't walk on the grass.
at A&M, when you walk around Texas A&M, there's an area right in front of the the parade field where they do the pass and review for the Corps cadets. There's an area there that there's grass, and every student, like when you're taking the tours, like if you guys step on that grass, someone is going to tackle you and manhandle you. You're not allowed to
Right.
step on the grass for whatever reason. I can't remember why, but it's a memorial of some sorts, right? Which, like, you remember back in the day, well, you was in shape when you was in the military because you couldn't run across the grass. You had to come down the sidewalk and then go up, right?
Right.
But like, we're just able to now relate and see what they're going to do. And I think that understanding that they're going to be okay just like we were okay is going to be all right, and even though I'm still that old man, I still have doubts. Well, I have a lot more doubts now about other things than that, but it's going to be okay. I remember being a young chief in the Navy, and as soon as you get promoted to chief in the Navy, you join all of the chief Facebook pages, and like, oh, you're ever, because I'm a chief now, right? Like, whew. And to see the old guys that retired, as I was currently serving in the Navy and leading, telling us that everything we were doing was jacked up and wrong, my response, I bet you can guess what it was. Well, you're not even in anymore. How do you even know how this thing goes? Like,
Right.
you're not even here. You don't do this every day. You're not around the Navy anymore. Like the way your Navy ran that's great, but it's different now. And so then I got to the end and I start looking and I'm like, man, I was like, I can't do it. I can't be that guy because I'm not there. Right. So don't ever try to walk in the shoes. And we were taught this. Don't ever try to walk in the shoes of somebody you don't understand. But for whatever reason, when you retire to the military, our retired veterans, they got a lot to say about it, which leads to the point of this, Ty. Think about this. If we put as much effort into advertising and making the benefits that veterans have getting out of the military as much a priority as we do about complaining about everything on social media, probably get a lot accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Because again, like right now, what you see with a lot of veterans is a lot of them are part of the problem. They're really not a part of the solution. I mean, you can complain all you want, but then that's when we were in the military, my leaders anyway, like if you're going to come to me with a complaint, you better have a solution with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's just complaints. Well, what's the solution? What can we do to make it better? And so that's where you got to start having conversations with people. And I think this is where the training that you have in the military to work together and work with different people helps you, right? You sit down and have these conversations. But, you know,
I've noticed with the VFW guys when I first getting around the American Legion, the VFW, there's always a filling out process with, oh, you just came off active duty, what's it like now? And then undoubtedly you'll always get the, well, that's not how we did it. And then I think at the beginning, when I first joined the VFW, I was like, yeah, them guys ain't going to be no good. The Army's going to suck now. But in reality, I've seen training videos. Some of the people that I served with got out and became instructors, and so they're teaching close quarters combat and how to hold a weapon, the posture of your weapon, the posture of your body when you're clearing rooms. And the thing that I always was taught with clearing rooms when I was young was like opposing corners. Point of least resistance, go in opposing corners, clear the room. But now the way that, and we would hold our weapons at the low ready and then come up, but the way they look now when they train, or the way they're supposed to look, it just looks so much more efficient. The movements that are taught now, how to hold your weapon, the sights, the zeroing the process they have to go through is so much more efficient now. I think because I have my little country accent there. I think because
Welcome back.
yeah, because there's a shared knowledge that they're standing on the shoulders of my generation. So we taught something, they took that, and they either made it a little better or they kept the same. But it seems like a lot of things are getting better. I remember, it goes back to my buddy with the World of Warcraft story. Um, when online games were first coming out, everybody thought that was going to be the death of the soldier because, why they were more worried about games and actually learn how to train on their iron sights. Well, as it turns out, a lot of that technology is now in our weapon system. So being really good at games can translate to an extent to being really good at some of these, using radar, using the computer systems, using the range, the lasers, and all this kind of stuff that we have on our person, on our personal weapons now. So to me, the hand-eye coordination that's needed to play video games, I can't do that now. I can't play Call of Duty with my son, my 21-year-old. I mean, he destroys me. So I tell him, hey, let's go play paintball and I'll destroy you or something. But in reality, that may not be the case. He may whoop my ass then too. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, think about the guy that I'm a healer and people need me. You know what? Every time I see you now, I'm just gonna let you know that you're a healer and people need you.
People need you.
But if something were to happen bad and people needed help, I don't know if this kid ever had the unfortunate opportunity, because it would be unfortunate to have to react in that situation. But let's say he never did and that situation happened. I would venture to say that his level of wanting to protect his teammates, meaning the soldiers around him, would have been a lot more elevated. The guy had that much passion about helping people he didn't know in a video game. How do you think he's going to react based off, and it's not army training, but training to be a member of a team in real life? Like it's
Oh
legit.
man, I'll tell you, that same kid that had the World of Warcraft raid that he had to be a part of was asked to go out on a mission with the military police in '07, '09. Um, and he was scared to go out in sector because we were in Baghdad. We were right near the green zone, and he was afraid. And we had a conversation. I was like, "Come on now, rely on your training. Are you And I used, at this point it seems silly, but for the sake of the story, I'll tell you. I said, "Are you a man or a boy?" I went to that. And he's like, "I'm a boy," and I'm like, "Holy cow, he is a boy." So we talked. That approach didn't work. So we talked a different way, and we were like, "All right, you've been training for this. You know what to do, and something happens, and this is your job to go out and, fix this radio at this retrans station in the middle of Baghdad. This is what you have to do." So he mustered the courage, and he went out there and went in sector, went on a patrol, got out in a combat zone and did his job. And then after that, I think he was to the point of, yeah, this may be difficult for me, but you know I can rely on my training. So in that 1 minute the confidence of his training, the confidence of the equipment he was wearing, the fact that all the people around him would protect him because he was the asset. He was fixing a critical communication radio system that we needed to work so that our battalion talk could be able to talk to everybody on the radio for situational awareness and command and control. So he ended up doing his job and overcoming his fear. I had to take a different approach to it, but the training kicked in. So it's the same. If he could come from a small town in Indiana, not knowing anything about anything, to other than he was a computer genius, like he was a 25 Bravo, one of those. No, he was a uniform, but he was really good with computers, and so he knew everything about networking and things like that. But tactical stuff, no confidence. But in that instant, he got it.
So that makes me, it backfires the whole setup. However, what if you would have been like, hey man, are you a healer or are you a runner? He'd have been
Right.
like, I'm a healer. Well, you got to go heal
Right.
that
I
comm
should have
machine
said
right
that.
now.
Oh man, if I could go back in time and say that now,
Dude, it would have been a movie moment.
right? And then the light, his eyes would get real big, and he'd like, kill, show me your war face.
Yeah.
Ah.
Would have been like,
Yeah.
what would everybody in your World of Warcraft tribe think about you standing here and punking out, I'm going to be a healer? Like legitimately. Like you're gonna legit heal some stuff right now.
I never thought of it like that, and I have to give him a shout out. I'll talk to him later about that.
Yeah. That's funny. But if you think about it, all of us military guys, like we always have great ideas after the fact.
Oh yeah, no doubt. My best ideas come after the fact.
Yep. That's why we train people to avoid them in the future. They're called
Right,
mistakes.
very true.
Yeah, man. Well, I tell you what, it's been a good time talking to you today. I can't wait for everybody else to learn more about you. I think that we're probably going to do this more than one time. I think you have a
Absolutely.
lot to talk about. I mean, we didn't even get into what you did with Lone Survivor and what you've done with the VFW and what you've done with the Chamber of Commerce, right? It was just too much fun talking to you about.
Now, I think that's what we did for 3 hours up in Oklahoma, man. We just started talking about the state of affairs of the military and of our ranks and our experiences along the way, and that's enough. It's intriguing to hear other people's perspective on that, especially when they're a senior leader as well. It's interesting to hear their story. So
Well, that's what I mean. Today, I just was having more fun hearing about what we just continued the Oklahoma conversation, but I do want to have another conversation with you in the future about things like Lone Survivor and things you're doing at the VFW, right? Because those things veterans can use, just like the conversation we had today. I guarantee you, there'll be a veteran out there that'll listen to this and be like, "Oh, I remember doing that stuff," or "Oh yeah, that was funny," or "Oh yeah, I felt that way too," and maybe that it helps them, right? So that's the whole goal of what we're trying to do. So.
absolutely.
The more people we can get to subscribe to the podcast I have on YouTube, so more people can see it, the better we're going to be off there, right? So just helping, not that we're going to be the number one anything in the world, but if you can help one person, that's important, right? And so that's what it's all about. And, I've talked to an array of different people. If I can help you do anything, that's the goal.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Lone Survivor in a very positive light. I went through the programs, and then I became a team leader with them, and the experience that I had when I worked with them was amazing because of the interactions you have with people that have issues, whatever issue that may be. Maybe PTS, maybe a tremendous anxiety. It may be some traumatic event that happened during a deployment. But the tools that Lone Survivor has, they'll throw 100 tools at you of things that you can use. And then if you're able to use just one person use one of those tools to make their quality of life better, then that's a success. So, and that's all I can say about Lone Survivor in a quick synopsis is everything that they do is good for people that struggle with PTS. So, but another time we'll go into in depth for sure.
No, yeah, I mean, I really would like to go into depth on that, but yeah, I mean, you see them all the time. I love listening to that podcast, and we have the Veteran to Veteran page on Facebook, and I'm starting to see a lot more of the Lone Survivor guys reaching out to that Facebook page and putting opportunities and different things they're doing up there, which we share it all the time and we post it. It's just good to see our lonely little page, solely because it's directed at veterans, a big organization like Lone Survivor, you can definitely see where they care about even the smallest amount of people, right? You
Right.
don't have to have some famous page, because we're not famous, right? Not at
No.
all. We should
Well,
be,
I'm
but
not. You are.
I'm not
You're kind of
famous.
famous.
Maybe to you.
Maybe to me.
You
It's all
should,
about perspective.
yeah.
I tell you, the work that Kiki McCrae is the clinical director for Lone Survivor, and she does an amazing job with the curriculum. And Morgan Sierra, and she's the North Carolina lead, so she leads. She's like the regional director, so the way they work together to get this information to the veterans, and then the veterans to the actual retreats in North Carolina, and then here in Houston, it's amazing. I don't always understand everything that's going on with them because I was just on the team leader clinical side, but they do an amazing job. I mean, that's not even talking about the actual story of Marcus Luttrell and you know all the other people that are working. They have amazing stories. The CEO is he was a Marine sniper in Vietnam, amazing dude, and so just the experience and the perspective that all those guys have, uh, they kick ass at doing their job. So
There's only one way to do a job, though.
yeah, well,
Yeah, well, Mr. Ty Cobb, same name as a baseball Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Famer to a lot of people, I'm sure. Done
I
a lot of
try.
things, and well, sometimes you don't, and you still are. Let's put it that way. Really, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate coming on today, and I can't wait to do it again. And you know, let's just let everybody know. I know you're a very involved member at the VFW in Tomball here in Texas. I'm also a member of that VFW. So let's, before we get off at the closing of this, let's give some people a couple of events that they can look forward to in the month of May and even April that they could come be a part of or support, or things that maybe the post is looking for.
Huh. What do we have going on at the VFW Post? Oh, okay. So April 8th and 9th, there's Our Heroes Wear Combat Boots cook-off. It's a state championship event. So that's put on by the auxiliary and the VFW of Post 2427. And then May 27th through the 29th, we have a doubleheader cook-off at the Tomball VFW, which is located at 14408 Alice Road, Tomball, Texas. 281-351-2427 is the number. Sign up at cookoff at vfwpost2427.org if you want to sign up for the cook-offs. Lots of stuff going on. May 27th through the 29th, we have a title sponsor, Got Your Six LLC, Got Your Six Culture LLC, and it's going to be great. Having a cornhole tournament, some chicken, some ribs, brisket, and pork butt and all the preparings and stuff like that. It's a great competition. Lots of people come out to it, and it's a fun event. It's a great community outreach. The cook off itself gets people in the door to our VFW, but ultimately the cook off, whatever the event is, it's great that it's a cook-off because it's a wonderful community. But whatever that event is, it gets people into the VFW, and then ultimately the veterans get help with whatever issue that they have going on at the time. So we just get veterans in the door and help them with whatever they have, and that's what we're all about. No one does more for veterans than the Veterans of Foreign Wars.
That's correct. So on that, the website that you just said, VFW, was it? Give the website one more time.
www.vfwpost2427.org.
Okay. And so from that, if you wanted to be a vendor, are you still taking sponsors?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, we're taking sponsors, we're taking vendors for both cook-offs, the April and May. Um, the doubleheader, of course, is 2 days, so we would like to have as many people there as possible for both days. But you can sign up for just one day of the 2 days if you want to be a vendor or a cook for that matter. So, yeah.
good, man. Good, good. So I can't wait to attend those events. I've been to one personally. They're pretty good. If you think you're good at cornhole in the Houston area, then we really want to see you put that to work. There's going to be some door prizes out there, and just different events we can come to. So whatever we can do to support the post, right? That's what you and I are here to do. So
Absolutely. I think the Dirty Underwear Gang cook team. I think they're the ones that won our last cornhole that we had that you sponsored, and I know they're coming back. They've already signed up for the May cook-off, so I know they're coming back to defend their title. They're
Mm.
always great supporters of the VFW. I think they
Oh
gave
yeah.
their winnings back to us. I forget what the prize money, but I know they gave it back, and they donated
Okay.
the cornhole boards back to us. So they're always very helpful. So
There you
big
go.
shout out to them.
Well, I can't wait to be in the tournament myself. So let's do this.
You got do you already have a partner?
You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
I got you.
Sean and I played last time. Sean Ellis, the commander for the VFW post, and we did okay. We had a lot of fun, but
Man.
we'll see. We'll see if you got time. You know, being the one that's running the whole thing, we'll see if you got time.
Dude, I thought I just had to sponsor and put a logo up. I have to run some stuff?
Oh no, yeah, nope, not now, not anymore.
Maybe. Whatever I can do to help.
Right,
So
it'll
cool,
be
man.
fun though.
I will talk to you later on. I know that, you probably got lots of stuff to do. Busy man with busy things.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of studying today.
There you go. If you ever need anything, man, just let me know. Back in school, I got to go do the same thing, man. I got to go study as well.
All right,
So,
hey, I appreciate you having me on. Your podcast is amazing. I love being involved in anything with you. So anything I can help in the future, you can count on me.
hey, look, man, I'm always looking to bring on guests and have a co-host. So whenever you want to do it, let's go.
We'll do it. We'll find something, and we'll have a good cop, bad cop. You can play good cop, and I'll be the bad cop.
Look, man, we can start another one of these if you want to. We don't have to just do one. We can have one that you and I do together. Like these things, that's the thing. The ability to do one of these. I thought it was going to be super hard, man.
Hmm.
I mean, what's super hard is if you're the person that does this because you want to get a whole bunch of people to know who you are, and it doesn't grow as fast as you think. That's what becomes super hard, right?
Right.
But I think someone asked me the other day, how many people listen to your podcast? And I was like, I don't even know. I don't know. Never look, never check, never care to see how many views I'm getting, how many likes I'm getting. If someone makes a comment, I'll reply back to them when it's on YouTube. But the podcast host site or who's listening to what, and I have no idea. Again, dude, we don't. This is why I like talking to you. We don't do these things for likes
Right.
or recognition. That's the difference.
Yeah, I enjoy the experience, just being able to talk
Yeah.
to somebody, and selfishly, if that helps me to be able to talk to somebody to get a different perspective, then
Yeah.
it's worth my time to do anything for an hour. Let's see, an hour and 32 minutes. It's worth my
Mm-hmm.
time to do anything if I get a new
Yep.
perspective on something. So
Yeah, dude. We just got to sit up here and bullshit for an hour and a half,
right,
and then we get to let everybody else hear about it. And that's great.
yeah,
Yeah, man. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll do it again soon.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one, brother.
You too.